Hello, Contrarian Dude here with another This Week in Tyranny for December 14th, 2015. And before we get started, a big thank you to everyone. I'm seeing so many great conversations going on in some of the playlists. We have a playlist dedicated to just rebutting Bernie Sanders' economic policy and that of his fans. And that's going gangbusters. A lot of people commenting that they're learning a lot about economics. So I really appreciate that. And the Freedom Challenge is taking off, and lots of people are dispelling some serious myths. In fact, people from the feminist camp and the Black Lives Matter camp and the socialist camp and the class wars camp, a lot of people are learning that they're actually doing the bidding of the 1% and the people that they dislike. And so a lot of people waking up, and it's just really, really enjoyable to see. So on with This Week in Tyranny. So let's begin with this little gem, which took place under the radar with no one really talking about it. Everyone was talking about what Trump said and what happened in San Bernardino. But the real tyranny was going on in Washington when the president signed in H.R. 22 into law. Now, buried in its 400 pages is a provision giving the government the authority to revoke your passport if they believe in their sole discretion that you have seriously delinquent tax debt. Now let's talk about a few of the terms here. The words seriously delinquent tax debt is not defined. And what we have learned from governments over and over and over again is they will always take the definition that is most generous for them. So you can basically remove the word seriously from that definition. They reserve the right to withhold your passport, prohibit you from travel if you have a tax debt. Now let's take a look at some of the components in there. First of all, there is no jury, there is no trial. This is just by bureaucratic decree, you cannot travel, okay? It's buried in tax code, which is the most complicated and voluminous legal pieces of information there are out there. There is absolutely no one. There's not one single person in the entire country, not even in the IRS, who understand all of the IRS tax code. Much of it is contradictory, much of it is mutually exclusive, and over again we see it's impossible to be compliant. So it is extremely easy to fall into some kind of tax debt. It's going to be an honest mistake, an easy mistake, and your life is ruined. You can never travel. The United States is now your jail. In addition to that, this has happened many, many times in history, many countries in the world. Taxes are so arbitrary, bureaucrats make decisions. It doesn't even happen in Congress anymore. Bureaucrats at the IRS actually make up these rules, and sometimes they make them up retroactively. So they can change the laws, even though you complied with them and paid the taxes. They can decide that there was a different law that needed to be applied, or even create new laws that applied in the past and tell you that you have some kind of tax debt. So this is complete tyranny. This is the removal of innocence until proven guilty. This is the abolition of due process. There is no judge, no jury, just a bureaucrat, a pen pusher in Washington can decide you don't have travel rights anymore. You are now a prisoner of the land of the free. They even go on to give themselves special exemptions should they make a mistake. It says, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of the State, and any of their designees, this means any of the thousands of bureaucrats who now have the privilege of pulling your passport, shall not be liable to an individual for any action with respect to certification by the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue under Section 7345. Translation of that means is they are not liable for anything that goes wrong with this law, whether you were put on the list erroneously, whether it was a false positive, or no matter how much damage it causes. They get a get out of jail free card. And we know that when government bureaucrats set up these lists, there are lots and lots of false positives. A false positive means someone who's completely innocent, not even intending to be accused of a crime, but they've gone on the list and they've had their passport revoked. And we know this takes place in the no-fly list all the time. So there's hundreds of documented cases where somebody goes to fly on a plane just because they share a similar name or the same name with somebody on that list, and there's nearly 100,000 people on the no-fly list now, then you just can't fly. And that's the end of your day. And you may be able to get through some process if you can prove that you're not that person. But it's a nightmare. And this is just more and more bureaucracy. So this is all just cutting at the foundations of freedom. The foundations that were laid in the Magna Carta some 8 centuries ago. We are regressing 800 years of liberty and free thought and intellectual pursuit. By the way, this year, June 15, 2015, was the 800-year anniversary of the signing of the Magna Carta. Wouldn't you think the land of the free might want to celebrate a little bit the signing of the Great Charter of Liberties? After several millennia of abuse, from tyrants and kings and oppressors of all kinds. The people rose up in 1215 and demanded certain basic rights, one of which was the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The burden is on the state to prove to beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have committed some crime before they can take action against you, before they can imprison you, before they can strip you of your property, before they can deny you of your individual human rights. And the Patriot Act did a really good job of slashing that for many, and now this piece of legislation is going to add to that. It also guaranteed separation of powers. Prior to the Magna Carta, it was the king who made the laws. He enforced the laws. He was the one who controlled the police force and the bully boys who came and arrested people. He employed the judges, and the judges gave the verdicts that he wanted, or they were fired. And if you appealed your decision in any way, shape, or form, you had to appeal to the very gangster who made up the laws and prosecuted you in the first place. You had to appeal to the king. So the Magna Carta guaranteed a separation of powers. One of those big ones is trial by jury. You were supposed to be the king could make the laws, but then whether or not the law was worthy of being a law and whether or not you committed a crime was to be judged by the jury, a jury of your peers. This new law violates two of the most important tenets of the Magna Carta, just setting us back 800 years and washing our hands of thousands of years of hard-fought freedoms. Then, in an even more brazen thing, he goes on television and advocates to do it all again with gun laws. Check this out.
For example, right now, people on the no-fly list can walk into a store and buy a gun. That's insane. If you're too dangerous to board a plane, you're too dangerous by definition to buy a gun. And so I'm calling on Congress to close this loophole now. We may not be able to prevent every tragedy, but at a bare minimum, we shouldn't be making it so easy for potential terrorists or criminals to get their hands on a gun that they could use against Americans.
So again, with this no-fly list, there is no due process. There is no judge. There is no jury of your peers. There are thousands and thousands of bureaucrats all across the land who, with a flick of a pen, can can put you on the no-fly list. And as offensive and disastrous as that is, that you can't fly anymore without any evidence being being offered against you, without any charges being laid, as offensive as that is, now they want to restrict your rights to have guns without any of this due process. I hope you enjoyed This Week in Tyranny. Please like it, share it, and comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I've mentioned trial by jury in this video, and my next video, I'm going to do a little bit of a thing on trial by jury. And it is one of the most amazing and brilliant stories that you have ever heard in your life. And you will never, ever learn this in a government-run school, not elementary, not high school, and not college. You will never, ever learn this. And it's one of the most amazing stories in the history of our civilization. And I really encourage you to please subscribe, and I'll release that video ASAP. I think you'll really enjoy it. See you soon.